Hi everyone, welcome back to another vid. And so today we are going into a discussion about the New Year's foreshadow for 2021. So if you watched my last video, you know that I put up a video just kind of quickly summarizing the New Year's greeting. Now at the beginning of every year, Yoshida puts up like a little kind of clue for us, like a kind of a hint of what we can be expecting for future updates for Final Fantasy XIV, and this year was no different. If you go up onto the logstone where you can see the New Year's greeting, we have from the Journal of a Resolute Man, our progeny may never know, wherefore we look unto the sky, nor why we dig for truths below, we bear their scorn or watch them die. So what on earth does all of this mean? Well, this here is going to be my discussion about my personal thoughts, my personal opinions of what I think might be coming. These are just my own personal predictions, so take from them what you will. But anyway, let's get into the discussion. Alright, so moving on here, as you already have the English translation, there's actually a French, German, and Japanese version, so I can go over those really quick with you. So for the French version, it says, basically, with mouths closed we pile stone upon stone, to form a staircase leading to the lands of knowledge, and another pointing to the heavens of existence. Our children will remember this in spite of their anger. From the Diary of a Stranger. So that's what it says in the French version. In the German version, it's, committed to our silent office, we seek wisdom in the deep earth. Place thoughts in starry hands, sung of in our children's lamentations. From the Diary of an Unknown Man. I just love how similar yet different the wording is for each of these. And finally, we have the Japanese version, which is, we are silent and do not speak, we build upon the stones. In order to gain knowledge, we climb into the earth. In order to survive, we climb into the heavens. Even if our progeny resents us, we do this for their sake. Excerpt from a Diary of an Unknown Man. So, what on earth does all of this mean? Like I said, they sound so different, but I think deep down, like, the message is still the same, I guess. So, what on earth are they talking about here? Well, I have several ideas. So first of all, I want to say that these aren't perfect translations. That's just kind of what I was able to get, at least from Google Translate, more or less. And I may have adapted those like here and there just so they made a little bit more sense. But those are just the basic translations that I was able to get. So my mind immediately went into overdrive for a lot of this. Like all the talk about diving down into the depths, like, does this have anything to do with like what that potential sound was that eventually caused the final days? And I mean, could the stars be like a reference to Azim or the Convocation? Those were just random ideas that immediately popped into my head. So what are my personal ideas for what this could possibly mean? Well, I doubt that this have any kind of reference to the final patch that's going to be coming out, patch 5.5. We still don't know anything about part 1 or part 2 for that final patch. I do think that we will be finding out about that in the showcase, however, which is coming out next month. So I'm betting that this poem has a lot of reference to the new expansion, which hopefully will be coming out this summer, but we will be finding out about that. So that kind of brings up a lot of theories because people have been talking about this for a while now. Where are we going for the new expansion? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about us going to Ishabard and taking on, like, finishing the war with Golomal. There's people talking about going to Sharlayan, and there's been talk about going to the New World, about going to the Void and helping to restore it. There's talk about Mericidia, and, like, maybe some other places that we possibly don't know. I think I read somewhere that some guy was convinced that we would be diving down into the earth and, like, discover an ancient civilization deep below ground. I mean, it's possible any one of those could actually happen, but I'm just trying to look at this from a more reasonable point of view in the fact that 6.0 is supposed to be the ending story for Hydaelyn, Zodiark, and the Ascians, basically. At least that's what Yoship-P has stated that they would like to do before they go on to another storyline. And personally, I think that that's a good idea, because once we end the storyline with Hydaelyn and Zodiac, we can really start to focus on other worlds, like other lands, like outside Eorzea and the 3 major continents. I do know that we have the New World, we have Mericidia. I think that both of those would be great expansions in and of themselves after the whole story with Hydaelyn and Zodiac is over. So where does that leave us right now? Well, I personally think that Ishbard is our best option right now. Personally, my best bet for what the new expansion is going to be about will mostly be evolving around Ishbard and most likely the Garlean Empire and putting a stop to that war once and for all, as well as stopping Vandaniel and everything. But I also think that one of the new hubs that we're going to is going to be Sharlayan. Now, I know that a lot of people are worried that this is just going to be like Stormblood 2.0 or something like that. And I admit they have reason to be concerned about that. Now, out of all the expansions that we've had since A Realm Reborn, Stormblood definitely seems to rank the lowest out of all of them. I mean, it wasn't a bad game. I personally did enjoy it. And we have to remember that it did come out right after Heaven's Ward. That was always going to be a hard game to kind of improve on after Heaven's Ward. But the real major issue with Stormblood was that it just felt like 2 separate stories. Now, for stories like Shadowbringers and Heaven's Ward, those felt like really one cohesive story. Like, it started off like in the beginning and we never really lost sight of our end goal there. And we grew to love the characters, we grew to love the whole storyline. They were so deep and complex, and it really was amazing to be able to walk through all those journeys. The problem with Stormblood, however, is that while the stories themselves, it wasn't terrible, but it felt like 2 separate stories that kind of just got shoved together, and the dev team just hoped that it would have made sense. It almost feels like we started reading one story, and then like halfway through that story, we immediately put the book down, and then we pick up another book and we read through that one. So we ended up getting like a whole new storyline, we got new characters, like a whole other journey there. And then once we were done with that one, we immediately go back to the first book that we were reading. That's kind of what it felt like. We have just 2 stories that don't really kind of connect in a way that would really flow as well. Again, I'm not saying Stormblood was a bad game. I played it, I enjoyed it, I'm glad that I played it, but compared to like the other 2 games, it just does not rank up there like as one of the better ones. So I think that's what a lot of people are really concerned with. Like, if they try to do 2 separate places, would that happen again? Would we get a kind of a letdown from Stormblood? It's certainly possible, but here's the thing. I do think that they can make a story that involves both Sharlayan and Garlemald work. They can make it work in a way that would make sense. Especially since Sharlayan itself is such a small island. If you look on the map, it's so tiny. It's like only a couple small islands, like hardly wide, big enough to be a city. I mean, just judging from the size itself, I don't think that it even counts as a zone. I think that it would be a good place to visit as the new hub. Definitely a good place where we can visit with the new hub. But I do think that the majority of the story for 6.0 is going to be taking place in Garlemald. Well, the thing with me though is when I look at it, when I read those words, it immediately comes to mind Sharlayan for some reason. And here's how it works. Now, like I said, this is just my own personal prediction of what's coming. It could be completely wrong, but let's just say that after 5.5, it's clear to us that we're going to Garlemald, that we really have to put a stop to Vandaniel's plan and put a stop to the Empire once and for all. So at the beginning of 6.0, when the expansion comes out, we head into Ishbard. And we travel around there, we meet some of the provinces, we learn about much more about the people and the problems there, and we still don't know exactly what Daniel is planning, or rather maybe we have an idea of what he's planning, but we don't have a clear way to stop it. So maybe we find out more information about Zodiark. Maybe Daniel's plan has to do with releasing Zodiark. Now, we already know the Ascians version of Zodiark in the final days, so we know about their side of the story. But we still don't have any information at all about Hydaelyn's side and any of her followers. However, what can we do? We don't know who, if any of her followers survived the Sundering, which I don't think that's the case. I don't think any of them really did survive. If they did, they're probably just sundered souls like everyone else. But there is still one person that we can talk to, which is Vana. Now, if you remember from 5.2, we found out that Vana served as Hydaelyn's heart. Whether or not she was ever able to separate herself from Hydaelyn like how Elidibus did with Zodiark is unclear. I think it's still reasonable to assume that she may still be kind of merged with Hydaelyn. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here with Zodiark. We need more information about Zodiark and just how best to stop him. But we need to hear Hydaelyn's side of the story first and maybe get a clearer idea of what we can do. So how do we do that? Well, the fact is we need to speak with Hydaelyn. During A Realm Reborn, we've had the Warrior of Light through several cutscenes speaking with Hydaelyn. Like Hydaelyn warning them that danger is there, like the servants of evil, the servants of darkness, and to beware of the Dark One. Now, we haven't talked to Hydaelyn at all since then. I mean, the only exception is when Hydaelyn was speaking to us through Minfilia, like when they were kind of one person, like the Word of the Mother. So we did find out some more information from the Word of the Mother during that time, but for Hydaelyn herself, we have not heard her speak other than like her trademark hear, feel, think. So I think it's about time that we do go back to Hydaelyn and see if we can get some real solid answers to what is going on here and maybe a solution to how to handle it. But how are we supposed to do that? I mean, it's not like there's like some sort of maybe upside down castle that's like on the very verge of the ethereal sea that we can actually go through and be able to talk with them. Wait a minute. Yeah, so that's exactly what I mean with the anti-tower. Now, I don't think that they will be using the anti-tower directly to be able to get to Hydaelyn herself. At least I don't think that there is going to be a simple way to get to the anti-tower this time. Like maybe it's just not working, maybe they can't get into the anti-tower anymore, maybe it was permanently sealed up, or like the ether flowing through that place is no longer safe to be able to go to the ethereal sea directly. So where best to do that? I highly doubt that Sharlayan is going to give up the idea of being able to study the ethereal sea that easily. I would be astounded if they didn't have like their own version of the anti-tower back in their homeland. So in terms of what we know, Sharlayan is a good fit. They dig in pursuit of knowledge, such as with the anti-tower. They look to the sky to determine the future, like with astrology, and they stay out of everyone's business and give no explanation for it. So perhaps it's Sharlayan and the reason behind their choices. I also feel like the window for interest in Sharlayan has peaked already, like especially with the twins mentioning their father and mentioning a little bit more about their homeland, like here and there, especially with the last patch. So, I mean, I don't think it would be too hard to really get us excited for that fact. But even should it work, like even should we be able to go to the ethereal sea, we find out these answers about Hydaelyn, what then? Well, maybe we go back to Ishabard and we end up fighting our way through it and taking on Xenos again, and maybe, I don't know, maybe like some version of Zodiark is threatening to break free, and we have to go to the moon to be able to stop it. I mean, I know that seems like kind of a jump there, but we have to remember Zodiark is still sealed up inside the moon. Maybe that's when we find out about it and we realize like we have to put a stop to this plan once and for all. So we have to get to the moon. But how do we do that? I mean, it's not like we have some sort of ancient civilization who has like experience launching things up into space. Wait, Yes, I know, we have Alec for that. Now, it was never said that Alec had been to the moon and back, but I would be astounded if they didn't have like some sort of starship or something that we could borrow, especially after the fact that they did launch Bahamut inside Dalamoon like way up into the heavens. So they must have like some kind of interstellar transports like in a ruin hidden somewhere or something. And who better than Golemal to possibly find it and track it down? That is what they've been doing for years. So this all kind of adds up, because after we get the information from Sharlayan, we go back to Golemal, we free Golemal, we have their help in like giving us maybe this starship, we travel to the moon and we take care of the whole problem with Zodiark there. I mean, think about it. Alec had just tore up the world thousands of years ago. They built plenty of ships, and pretty much everything they've done has just been a thorn in our side. And an earthquake sure as hell doesn't kill off an entire civilization with spaceships, especially considering the fact they launched a giant moon-sized satellite into the heavens. So yes, that is just my own personal idea of what I think might be waiting. So I had that theory in my head for weeks now, if not months. And I don't know why I was thinking about that. It's just that when I read that poem, it immediately came to my mind. I mean, it sounds a bit brief account of like Sharlayan activity, like regarding the anti-tower and maybe their flight from the hinterlands, but that last line in particular kind of reminds me about Vina, Hydaelyn, and the Ascians. I mean, Vina believed that she and her followers will be hated by their brethren for creating Hydaelyn, and Hydaelyn referencing to the sundered souls of the world she shattered as her children. And then there's the Ascians rejoining, being the opposite side of that coin. So I guess it's for their own good part is a pretty common argument from folks doing morally ambiguous things. But yeah, when I read that poem there, I can't help but think that we plan on going down under the planet to, if not learn more about whatever this mysterious sound was that caused the final days, then maybe to confront Hydaelyn like on part of the ethereal sea and just get an explanation for everything, and then we go up to the moon to destroy Zodiark. Or maybe like Sharlayan themselves would be like totally against us and try to stop us. But either way, I do think it's clear they're referencing us to Sharlayan. As for the part where it's from a resolute man, I have an idea that it may be connected to the twins' father. I mean, at first I thought that it was like the Wandering Minstrel again, but I don't think that's the case. I think that part of that poem was written specifically by the twins' father, Alphino's and Alize's father. And it could be referencing like there's definitely a rift between him and his children. They definitely seem to have some kind of family drama. We don't know anything about their mother yet, so it's up in the air if their mother is even still alive. But the twins definitely seem to have been much closer with their grandfather than they are with their father. So it could be that their grandfather was their primary caregiver, and maybe their father was like so focused on his work, like in his studies, like being in the studium, that he didn't pay nearly enough attention to his children. That would go a long way to explaining some things, like maybe Alphino was the way that he was because he was trying to get his father's attention. He was trying to find a way to kind of bond with him, like get his father to acknowledge him. And maybe this is why Alize had such a powerful connection with their grandfather, with Louis Soir, because she felt neglected by their own father. I believe that Sharlayan was inspired by Amarot in a lot of capacities, since we know memories of the ancient world persist in various facets. So I don't think that they know anything about Amarot. I would be astounded if they did know, but I would also be surprised if they didn't have like some kind of idea that maybe like through all these legends and stories that they've studied, that they may have been aware that there was like a perfect civilization at one point in the past, and they tried to copy that. We've seen multiple hints pointing at Sharlayan recently, and especially with the conclusion of 5.4 and various interviews, so I am convinced that Sharlayan will be involved in some way. If it does turn out that we are going to Sharlayan so that we would be able to find a new way to speak with Hydaelyn and maybe Vana, or at least Vana's faction. I'm not sure if that would be able to give us the answers that we need, or maybe we are able to speak with Hydaelyn once more and we get her side of the story of everything that happened. I mean, I don't think she would have the answer to help us defeat the Ascians, but I do think that we should be able to find out more information about Azim and what their role in it was, especially since it was made clear that Azim left the convocation because of the summoning of Zodiark. They didn't want anything to do with that. However, from what we found out back in Echoes of a Fallen Star, it doesn't seem like Azim was with Vana and their faction either to summon Hydaelyn. So we know that the Warrior of Light is the reincarnated version of Azim, like the 14th member of the convocation. We didn't come out and say it. Well, at least no one else came out and say it, but it's all but confirmed for us. I think it was pretty obvious from the very beginning. So I think that if we can learn more about Azim and their role in everything that happened, then we would have a much better idea of what we're up against and maybe how to defeat it. So after all of this, like somehow they plan on wrapping up the whole story with the two gods and all the Ascians. We'll have all of that handled, and then once that's settled, I think that's when we're going to be learning about what this mysterious sound is and exactly how it ended up causing the final days. And just the idea of going to Sharlayan is going to cause a lot of drama, especially I think for the twins, because I mean, it was said that Alphino and his father had very conflicting ideas about Sharlayan policy. And Alice herself, like, it doesn't seem like she gets along with her father at all. I do think that this is going to be a good chance for the twins to really come into their own, for them to really start maturing and maybe upgrade themselves, because it was suggested back in 5.3 that they felt kind of lack of development, I suppose, because they're still using like the same weapons that they have been using since pretty much they joined us. And it just would be interesting because they are the best equipped to be able to get us to the Ethereal Sea, and thus with Hydaelyn. And I can't help but think of them when I think of that other line, like that final line where we bear their scorn or watch them die, because that's just how they think. They collect and hoard all this knowledge and refuse to share it with the world. And they refuse to get involved in any kind of like developments with the world, like any kind of wars or fighting. They just sort of stand off to the side to watch and record it. So, like I said, I do think that the 6.0 expansion is really going to be us focusing upon Hydaelyn and Zodiark and the Ascians. That's going to be us closing out that story. As for the sound that caused the final days, I think that that's going to be more of a storyline that we'll be getting involved with in 7.0, which is going to be at least 2 years away, 2.5 years at the very least. Especially since it was stated that this is supposed to be the final chapter in the tale of this star. When they say that, I can't help but think that it refers to Hydaelyn and Zodiark, since as they take the position of the will of the star. So anyway, anyone, that's pretty much what I think that this New Year's foreshadowing might mean. I think that if it's not Amaranth, then it's definitely like maybe a civilization like Garlemald and Sharlayan, because they do seem a lot similar, because I think there's a lot of superiority complexes here. They both think that they're kind of better than other nations. I mean, Garlemald definitely thinks themselves better. They call like any other nation beneath them. They call them savages. While in Sharlayan, and particularly because of the Astrologian quest, we learned that there are some like high-ranking Sharlayans who kind of see us the same way. They see people as savages because they don't have a higher education. So I think this is a really good way to kind of connect the two, because we're dealing with like extremists who do think that they're better than anyone, and they may not be willing to change. That is an interesting way to go about it. They do all of these like questionable things, like Garlemald like waging war like with the rest of the world, and Sharlayan just hoarding all their knowledge and refusing to get involved in like other nations because they think that what they're doing is right. And even if their children question them, like they say that this is for your own good, like you just have to trust me, we know what we're doing. And so they dig deep below, like, or onto the sky, like, and this is a way to connect them, because with Sharlayan, we're digging down below for truth and knowledge. And with Garlemald, once we get them on our side too, we'll be launching like straight into the heavens to put an end to like all this fighting. They do what they do right now because they feel like it's the best choice for their descendants, like for their people, that this is the way it's supposed to be, and I know what's best, and we just have to do it. So even if you hate me for it, I'm still going to do it. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. That was my personal predictions for what could be coming for us in the new expansion of 6.0. That's just a very basic summary. I probably could have explained it in a better way that would make sense, but that's just what I'm thinking so far. That's immediately what popped into my head when I read that the first time. So yeah, what do you all think of my particular thoughts? I mean, personally, I think that if it wasn't Louis Soir who wrote that, like if it wasn't from his journal of a resolute man, then it was definitely from the twins' father's journal. I can't remember what his name was, but I am betting that that is from his father. Like, and he's maybe thinking about his children when he's writing that out. That was just another funny idea that popped into my head. Anyway, that's it for now, everyone. Thank you all so much. We are still just at the very beginning of this year. We still have so much to do, and hopefully we are heading down a better path than what the road was to get here, basically, after 2020. So yeah, let me know what you think. Please take from it with a grain of salt, and let me know what you personally think about what may be coming for us, or what you think it might mean. So until next time, everyone, take care, and hope to see you all again soon. Bye!